welcome back to the deep dive. If you've ever felt like the world of cryptocurrency is just this landscape of hundreds of tokens all making these vague promises, you are definitely not alone.
Oh, absolutely. It can be overwhelming.
But today, we're giving you a shortcut. We're doing a deep dive into one specific asset, Bitcoin Cash, or BCH, that was designed for one extremely focused, clear purpose.
And that purpose, right out of the gate, is to be a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. Simple, decentralized, and fast.
So our mission today is to get you fully informed on what BCH is, why it was even created, and how its whole technical architecture has allowed it to scale and evolve, especially with some of its more recent upgrades.
Let's just lay the foundation right away. Bitcoin Cash launched back in August 2017.
Right, as a hard fork of Bitcoin, of BTC.
But it wasn't just a random clone. This was, well, it was a philosophical declaration. It was about trying to maintain that original vision from the 2008 white paper.
Cheap, reliable digital money for anyone, anywhere.
Exactly. And it's important to understand what a hard fork is here. They literally copied the entire code base and all the transaction history right up to that point, but then they changed one fundamental rule.
And we'll get into the mechanics of that change. But the core story today is really why that change was seen as so essential for BCH to actually work as electronic cash.
And, how that system is performing today in the real world, especially with new tools like cash tokens.
Okay, so let's unpack that history.
Yeah.
Because you really can't understand BCH without understanding the massive conflict that came before it.
You're so right. Before the tech, we have to talk about the great scaling debate.
Let's do it.
Absolutely. So from around 2015 to 2017, the original Bitcoin chain was, well, it was having a crisis of growth. The sources all confirm that its block size was stuck at just 1 megabyte.
1 megabyte. Which, as demand grew, created these immediate, really painful bottlenecks.
Yeah, we remember those days.
So what did that actually look like for a regular user?
It meant total network congestion. If you wanted to send a transaction, you were basically in a bidding war with every other person trying to do the same thing.
Right, so fees just went wild.
We became volatile, unpredictable, spiking to $5, $10, sometimes even more when traffic was high.
And your transaction could just get stuck for hours?
Hours, sometimes days, if your fee wasn't high enough. The whole system just became unusable for, buying a cup of coffee.
So it basically stopped being everyday cash. It turned into more of a high-security settlement network for big transfers.
Precisely. And that's where the split happened. You had these two totally irreconcilable visions for what digital money should be.
Okay, so vision number one.
That's the side that kept the Bitcoin, or BTC, ticker. They argued that the 1 megabyte block limit should stay. It was about prioritizing security, decentralization, making it easy to run a full node.
And their idea was that scaling should happen off-chain.
Right, using layer 2 solutions like the Lightning Network. Their primary goal shifted. Bitcoin became digital gold, a store of value.
And the other side, which became the Bitcoin Cash supporters, they just said, no, that violates the entire point of this project.
Correct. Their whole stance, which was championed by people who'd been in the project from the very beginning, was that Bitcoin must scale on the base layer.
On-chain.
On-chain scaling. That was the only way to achieve, and I'm quoting the white paper here, a purely peer-to-peer version of electronic cash.
So it wasn't about whether to scale, it was about how.
Exactly. And when they just couldn't reach a consensus, the fork happened. August 1st, 2017. BCH was born, choosing high throughput and low fees as its main priority.
And this is a really critical point for you to get. The structure is what enables the philosophy.
Let's dive into that architecture then, because even though the philosophy split, the core monetary DNA is identical.
Which is fascinating, isn't it?
It is. BCH shares the exact same fundamentals that make Bitcoin secure and scarce. It's got the same proof-of-work consensus, the SHA-256 mining algorithm, and of course that fixed supply of 21 million coins.
And the 10-minute block time, the 4-year halving cycle.
All of it. So in terms of monetary policy and base security, they're twins.
The defining difference, the one structural change that lets BCH be cash, is the block size.
Exactly. While BTC's base block size is capped so low, it's between 1 and 4 megabytes depending on the transaction type. BCH went big. It eventually settled at a 32 megabyte block size limit.
And that capacity is the source of the aha moment.
Yeah.
That huge block size isn't just a footnote. It's the direct link to the utility.
That's it. If you can fit exponentially more transactions in every 10-minute block, you just eliminate the congestion. You get rid of the bidding wars for space.
Which means you get high throughput. The network can handle hundreds of transactions per second right on its base layer.
And crucially, it ensures the fees stay dirt cheap.
You have to put a number on that cheapness because the difference is just staggering.
It really is. We're talking about transaction fees measured in, like, tenths of a cent.
So if I send $10 to a friend,
the fee might be something like $0.0005. It's designed to just disappear, be background noise.
which is absolutely essential if you want to be used for global microtransactions or to compete with, actual cash.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but that reliability and affordability,
Mm-hmm.
it has to come with a trade-off, right? If the blocks are 32 times bigger,
Mm-hmm.
doesn't they create a centralization risk?
That is the critical question. That's the core of the debate that led to the fork.
Because fewer people can afford the bandwidth and storage to run a full node.
Right. And BCH supporters, they acknowledge that trade-off. But their argument is that hardware costs for bandwidth and storage are falling so rapidly, much faster than the network's adoption rate.
So technology will catch up.
That's the bet. They also argue that while a full node might be more resource-intensive, the system is still highly distributed. And the benefits of that capacity for billions of users who need cheap cash outweigh the slightly higher cost for node operators.
Okay, that frames the debate really well. Now, this commitment to on-chain scaling, it didn't just stop in 2017. The BCH community has had its own intense debates.
That's a crucial area. The history of BCH, even with its clear philosophy, is marked by its own splits. It just proves how fragile consensus can be.
Let's start with 2018. That was a big one.
Yeah, the 2018 split. That's what created Bitcoin SV, or BSV. This split wasn't about whether to scale, but how much.
How so?
The BSV side argued for block sizes in the gigabyte range. They believed that massive, centralized, professional mining farms were the only path to global scale.
Whereas the BCH side favored a more measured approach.
Exactly. They wanted to stick with the 32 megabyte limit and focus on stable, secure development.
So the 2018 split was really about the speed and method of scaling and what level of centralization risk you're willing to accept.
Precisely. And then you have another split in 2020.
This one was totally different, right? It was about funding.
All about funding. Some developers proposed a system where a small slice of the block rewards would be automatically funneled to fund development.
An infrastructure funding plan, basically.
Yeah.
A tax.
A tax, correct. And the community overwhelmingly rejected it. They saw it as a dangerous step towards centralization. They preferred voluntary, community-led funding.
And the chain that came out of that was the Bitcoin Cash node, or BCHN.
Right. And it affirmed the community's commitment to decentralized and deliberately slow governance. They only implement updates that are seen as absolutely necessary.
Like efficiency improvements or the cash tokens we need to talk about next.
It just shows that for this community, the vision of decentralized cash is something they are constantly guarding.
Okay, so speaking of necessary updates, let's talk about those. For a network so focused on simple cash payments, it has been quietly evolving, especially with that big upgrade in 2023.
Let's talk about cash tokens.
Yeah, if BCH is supposed to be simple cash, why add tokens and smart contract functionality?
Because global money needs more utility than just simple transfers. The 2023 activation of cash tokens allows the BCH blockchain to support much more complex operations.
We're talking fungible tokens, NFTs.
Fungible tokens, NFTs, and the on-chain logic you need for decentralized applications or DAT apps.
That sounds like a pretty big departure. But you said the design preserves efficiency. How do they pull that off?
This is where the design is so clever. Cash tokens were built to address the scalability problems you see on other smart contract platforms. They avoid what the sources call global state bloat.
Okay, let's slow down on that phrase, global state bloat. What does that mean for someone trying to grasp the concept?
Right. Think of it like this. On many chains, every time a smart contract runs, every single node on the planet has to track and remember the exact state of that contract. It adds massive overhead.
So it's like every computer has to keep a running tally of every single transaction and its outcome all at once.
Exactly. It requires huge computing power, and that leads to high fees. Cash tokens sidestep that. They implement the functionality in a way that keeps the chain light and affordable. They integrate the tokens right into the existing cash transaction structure, so the system doesn't need a high-fee virtual machine to run.
That's smart.
Yeah.
So you can build decentralized exchanges, stable coins, loyalty programs.
All while keeping the fees negligible. It's about adding utility without sacrificing the core mission.
Okay, and what about privacy? Because this is still a public ledger.
It is, but the ecosystem has developed two major voluntary tools for privacy. The first is called Cash Shuffle.
A coin mixing protocol.
Yep. It groups transactions from multiple users together. It shuffles the inputs and redistributes the outputs, making it extremely hard to link which specific coin went to which person.
So it adds plausible deniability.
Exactly. And then there's a more advanced system, cash fusion. This is non-custodial. The system never holds your funds, and it uses these complex multi-party fusions.
Making it even harder to track.
It makes deterministic tracking, where you can follow a coin from start to finish, basically computationally impossible.
That optional privacy layer is crucial for a global cash system. So we connect all this to the bigger picture. The low-cost structure opens up these really high-impact use cases that just can't work on high-fee networks.
Absolutely. Think about remittances.
Huge in developing nations.
Huge. Traditional banks and services can charge, what, 5 to 10%?
Mm.
And it takes days. A family can send money across a border with BCH. It's confirmed in minutes, and they pay less than a penny in fees. That makes it a practical financial tool, not just a speculative asset.
And what about merchant adoption? You need people to actually be able to spend it.
Merchant adoption is robust. Thousands of businesses all over the world accept BCH through platforms like BitPay or coin payments. It's often just a simple QR code at the point of sale.
I can see how powerful that is in places where credit card fees are high or banking is limited.
It's transformative, but also...
Right. You can't run a tipping service or an in-game economy if the fee is more than the tip itself.
Exactly. BCH's minimal fees finally make those micro-interactions viable. You can actually fulfill that old promise of paying a fraction of a cent for web content or to tip a streamer.
So let's bring this all home. We've gone through the split, the architecture, the utility, the governance. Let's synthesize the core difference for the listener, which really is all about mission.
It truly all comes down to the scaling philosophy. When you look at the data, the missions are just fundamentally different. Bitcoin, BTC, is focused on being a store of value.
And Bitcoin Cash, BCH, is focused on being peer-to-peer payments.
And the tech specs reflect that. BTC's block size is intentionally small, fees are in the dollars range, and scaling relies on off-chain solutions like Lightning.
Whereas BCH has that big 32 millibit block size, fees of less than a cent, and a philosophy centered entirely on maximizing the capacity of the on-chain base layer.
To handle global volume directly.
So what does this all mean? The existence of Bitcoin Cash is kind of a living document, right? A declaration that the original goal of decentralized digital cash is worth fighting for.
And worth splitting over. It has successfully evolved to handle high transaction volumes with those tiny fees, and adding cash tokens shows it's ready to support a bigger decentralized economy without giving up that affordability.
Which raises a really important question for you, the learner, that kind of defines the next decade of digital finance.
We've seen that even a fixed supply doesn't guarantee a unified vision. The whole history of BCH shows this fierce, uncompromising commitment to its specific scaling path.
So the ultimate decision for the future of global money might not be about which chain is older,
but which scaling path is more sustainable and more accessible.
Exactly.
So the key question you should be asking yourself is this. Which philosophy on-chain capacity for everyday global transactions or off-chain solutions that prioritize the store of value use case will ultimately define the future of digital money? That contrast and the implications of choosing one path over the other, that's something for you to explore on your own.
A fascinating challenge. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Bitcoin Cash.